Hi everyone, I think we're live. Fingers crossed. If you're joining me today, please let me know in the comments just so I know that I am actually live. And I'd love to know if you're joining me live or if you're watching the replay. So basically, I've brought back my interview series for this week, and I'm going to be interviewing 5 amazing women who can help you with your career or your business. They're all amazing in their great way, in their own way, but their great way as well. So today I'm going to be chatting to Brittany Gardner, who I'm going to bring up on the screen in a second, and we're going to be chatting about showing up as an introvert. And we're both introverts, so we can tell you all our top tips. Tomorrow, I'm going to be chatting to a lady called Donna, and we're going to be chatting about overcoming adversity in business. Wednesday, I'm going to be chatting to another lady called Jennifer, and we're going to be chatting about PR and thought leadership. And Thursday, I'm going to be chatting to a lady called Melanie, and we're going to be chatting about how to create amazing and valuable content. And Friday, I'm going to finish up chatting to Sabrina, and we're going to be chatting about just getting more confident as a business owner. So I'm trying to see if there's any comments yet. I don't think so. Hopefully I'm live. Hopefully it's just one of those days that people don't realize. And Natalie, hi Natalie. So just to give you some background, the 5 women I am interviewing, we all belong to the same network called Advance, and the lovely Natalie, who's just joined me, is a fellow member. So I'm going to give them a shout out, and I don't know if you can see this cup that I got recently from them. It's Empowered Women, Empower Women. So that's why I'm doing this collaboration series, because we're all part of the same network. And if anyone's interested in learning about this network that I belong to, reach out, because they're doing a free open house at the start of August. So I can share some details with you if you want to join and check out what it's all about. So I'm going to stop rambling and bring up my first amazing guest on the screen, who is Brittany. And we're going to be chatting, as I said, about showing up as an introvert. So hello, Brittany. Welcome.
Hey everyone, how's everyone doing this morning? I know for Jennifer it's the afternoon, but it is bright and early here in the US right now. So hope everyone's enjoying their start today.
Brittany is a rock star, because it's just 7 a.m. her time. I'm like super impressed that she's jumping on this early to join me. I would actually still be in bed if I'm honest. I don't even get up at 7. I go up after. So thank you so much for joining me. And I can see we have got people joining us in the comments. So hello, Natalie, fellow advanced member. Hi, Targal. I can see Cheryl. I can see another advanced member, Sabrina, who I'm going to be chatting with on Friday. Lovely lady Sarah that I know, and Katty. So thank you for joining me. So I'd love to know where you're joining us from in the world, and let us know in the comments whether you're an introvert or an extrovert. I suspect most of you are introverts because why would you be joining this? But I imagine you're mostly introvert. So let me know. I can see that Kathy is actually saying it's 7 a.m. as well for her. So I'm super impressed. She's in Nevada. So I'm just going to kick things off. I've got some questions to ask Brittany. And the first one is, how can a raging introvert be present on social media? So what's your kind of take on it, and what social media are you on, and how have you used it?
Yeah, so first of all, a lot of what we're going to talk about today is going to be true for both introverts and extroverts. What we're going to focus on is just making it better for introverts and not feeling like you're so far out of your comfort zone. But a lot of what I think we're going to cover here today is going to apply to extroverts as well. And specifically, I want to say that because the thing about being an extrovert on social media is that you might feel like it's easy, but it's really easy to kind of almost steamroll other people, because it is so easy for you and it is, more in your comfort zone, but you might be leaving behind people if you don't kind of pay attention to how other people show up as well. So raging introverts on social media, I think the number one thing to know is that no, you don't have to do all the things. No, you don't have to be all the places. And I happen to love Instagram. I don't mind putting my face on social media at all. I don't mind actually showing up on video now. A couple of years ago, that was not the case. This kind of thing right here would have terrified me just a few short years ago. But everything becomes easier with practice, and if you can connect why you are doing this to something inside of you, all of the rest of the stuff becomes easy. But I do want to reiterate, you don't have to do all the things. And I know Instagram in particular made a big announcement just a couple short weeks ago that they are no longer a photo sharing platform. They're a video platform. And there's two tacks that you can kind of take with this, right? The first is like, no, I don't like it. And that was my first reaction. I'm a former photographer. Like my first business was as a photographer. I did that for well over a decade. And I loved Instagram primarily because I love photography. And still, at least half of the people I regularly follow on there, I follow because they have beautiful visuals. So that was my first reaction. But my second reaction was like, hey, you can make whatever change you want. That doesn't mean I have to follow in line with everything. And, the algorithm, it is what it is. But if you are providing good, valuable content and people enjoy your content, Instagram will still keep giving your stuff play regardless of whether you're doing all of their things. And, I'm not a big fan of reels personally. I'm happy to do IGTVs. I'm happy to do lives sometimes just like this, right?
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean I have to do every last thing that they offer. And I think whether you're an Instagram person or not, you have the ability to choose how you're going to show up. And so long as you are showing up consistently in some kind of way, you don't have to do all the things. And I think just knowing that makes it a lot easier for people who do have an uncomfortability, whether that's an uncomfortability showing their face, an uncomfortability showing up at all, or an uncomfortability just really putting themselves out there, as I think a lot of introverts start out with.
Yeah, there's so many good tips there. And I think the same really applies to LinkedIn. Just because all these features exist, it doesn't mean you have to do absolutely everything. And I think that's what puts a lot of people off. They think, oh, like today, we're on live. Oh, do I have to do LinkedIn Live to be successful on LinkedIn? And it's like Brittany said, it's about figuring out what works for you. And I only joined live myself last year and it terrified me. And now I've got into the zone. I still have to psych myself up a bit to kind of go, right, let's get ready. But it does get easier. It's like anything. And I know the first few years I joined any kind of social media, I was really passive. I just had my profiles optimized. That was the one positive. I always knew I had to have a strong profile. If I wasn't going to be active, I at least had to look the part. And then little by little over time, you dip your toe in the water. And for me, initially, it was showing up, especially on LinkedIn, it was showing up in comments. That was like my first baby step before worrying about having to create original content. Or even curate content, even though like initially even sharing a bit of content and putting a sentence would have terrified me. It's kind of like, what am I going to say? What is my take on this? Is this interesting enough for people to check out? But I think like Brittany said, when you go beyond yourself and you take yourself out of the equation and you just think, how can I help my community? Why am I on here? When you're more focused on others and giving back and giving them good content, then you get over yourself because it's not really about us. It's about how we can help others. So, when you are on LinkedIn, it's always about sharing valuable content, how you can help your community. It's not you constantly saying, look at me, here's a new photo or here's a video. It's about, giving value and showcasing your credibility. So, there was
And having, oh, sorry.
Go on. It's good.
Well, I was just gonna say having a good, consistent message that you can fall back on is always going to make it easier for you to show up. And I liken this to a dinner party or a cocktail party, right? So for an introvert, sometimes those kinds of settings are going to be very difficult, right? I personally don't ever have trouble with like a dinner party because I'm good at small group, intimate conversations. I'm comfortable in that zone. But a mixer type situation, I've always had trouble with. And I remember way back when my husband and I were first together, I lived in New York. I had no family there. So all the family gatherings were with his family. And, it was just a different family vibe than I was used to. Like my family is so comfortable having like kind of really great discussions at the table and like debates even. And, I know that could probably be very off-putting for another person, right? But for me, that was my normal. And I'd go to my husband's family's dinners and nobody talked. And that was so uncomfortable for me, right? Like as an introvert who was used to like small groups being my comfort zone, to just kind of sit there in awkward silence, I was like, no, this is supposed to be my happy place. Like, what is going on here, right? So I actually came to I think it was Thanksgiving, and I knew my husband's brother-in-law was like super into football, so I checked who was going to be playing, and I like made sure I knew like a few things about the team. And I'm not a sports ball person, so this was like a big deal. I was like researching talking points, right? And that particular meal was much easier than the one that I had been at previously because I had a plan, right? I had something to say. And it's the same with you showing up on social media. If you know what you're going to say, and
Yeah.
if you know that people can be helped by what you're going to say, that they're interested in what you're going to say, showing up is that much less difficult because you have a plan, you have something to fall back on, you know your topic, you're at least on your way to being an expert, if not yet an expert on your topic, right? So it makes all of those like awkward silences or just transitions so much easier when you know where you're going with it rather than being like, well, I know I need to show up today. I should probably post something. I don't know what. If you know the what already, you take that big question mark out of it.
Yeah, no, I love that. Like, I think when you are intentional and you have a plan, and a lot of people don't have any plan, especially on LinkedIn, they don't even know why they're on LinkedIn. So they've set up their profile and they haven't tailored it towards finding a new job, finding a new client. They really don't know what they're trying to achieve. And that's why they get overwhelmed because there is no kind of deep why or what. And that's why they struggle with content because they have no idea. There's no plan at all. And I think it's great to have a plan even when you're reaching out to people on LinkedIn and you're sending connection requests. If you do like Brittany said, that tiny bit of research and just say, I'd like to connect with you because we both belong to the same network, Advance, and you're just telling somebody we've got something in common, there is some common ground, or I'd like to connect with you because I saw your LinkedIn live earlier on. People will connect with you so much quicker because it
Yeah.
looks like it's thought out and there's a plan and it's intentional, as opposed to just the random connection requests that say nothing. And then you arrive on that person's profile and you have no idea who they are, why they want to connect with you, or what they're about. So I love that, like the little bit of research, because otherwise it's just spray and pray approach to content, isn't it? It's just hoping something will stick and throwing things out at random times and random topics, and there's no clarity. And I think once you do that deep dive at the start and you just know what you stand for and you've got a few topics, and I've only got a few that I chat about, and you're probably the same. Like, I'm happy to chat about being an introvert any day of the week because I'm passionate about helping other introverts to navigate online space. And of course, I speak about LinkedIn, you'll speak about social media and content, so there's probably like 5 key topics I talk about, and that's it. And I think
Yeah.
once you're clear on what you talk about, it's so much easier, because I think as an introvert, I get stressed if it's a topic that's out of my comfort zone and I don't understand it. But when you do know what you're talking about, it's easy. You're just sharing information, and you're educating or informing or inspiring or motivating, but there's some purpose to it. So I really love what you said. Before I dig deep and go on to the second question, I'm going to quickly go through some of the comments because I don't want to
Yeah.
ignore our lovely guests. And it's nice to see where people are coming from. So we've got Cheryl said she's original New York City, but now she's in London. I can see a few introverts. I know Callie, she's popped up. Sarah's near me. Devon, she's an introvert. We've got Shropshire in the UK. We've got Cape Town, total introvert, Yolanda says. We've got one extrovert, Kathy. That's good. Oh, we've got another one. John's from Ohio, extrovert mostly. We've got I don't know how you pronounce your name. Hopefully it's Jahail from Texas. Then we've got Elspeth from North Somerset. So we've got a nice mix actually of UK, States, and South Africa. So Kathy, she's launched straight into a question, and it's basically, does Instagram only allow videos now? Does it allow any photos still?
Nope, no, you totally can still use photos. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually did an experiment last week and I only posted video content for a whole week. I was just kind of curious to see what it did. And I'm happy to report to all my photo fiends. It didn't do any better than my photo content does. In fact, one of them did horribly worse. So if you're worried by what I said, you don't need to be worried. You can still use Instagram the way you've always used it.
Yeah, and like I just, like you said at the very start, if it's good content, it's good content. It doesn't matter what the format is. And I think if you hate video, you never have to use video on social media. If you
Yeah.
like little short snippy posts, I've seen people just do posts and they're 2 and 3 sentences long, but they're good. They don't use any graphic, no video, but they're clever and they actually get engagement. So even if that's your content, that's amazing. Your content could even be simply commenting, because that's just like you've already got existing stuff on your home feed, and it's simply engaging and giving back, because every time you leave a comment, you're leaving like a digital business card, of like a virtual business card, which is your headshot and your headline, and you're giving back value. And I've seen a lot of people get traction with simple comments. A post got minimal, 10, 20 likes, but the comment got 100 likes because the comment was clever and insightful or well thought out, or a joke, like we are human beings, we're allowed to joke. So it doesn't always have to be like a video or photos or graphics or PDFs or carousels or reels or anything like that. If you find something that you like and you can be consistent and repeat it, go for it, because you don't have to do all the things. That's exhausting, and who would want to do that? So
Yeah.
that actually leads me on to a good question. How do you protect your energy when you're showing up online? So whether it's like one-to-one, so it could be one-to-one on a Zoom call or in groups, because I know for me as an introvert, I really have to manage my energy. So how do you do it, Brittany?
I like, again, so I'm going to just repeat what I said earlier, having your messaging down pat ahead of time helps me be able to show up. So especially in a live situation, right? This, if I didn't have like a clue what we're going to be talking about, my like gear up, would be so much more difficult, right? So I already knew our topic. I mean, it's a topic I can speak on pretty easily because, like Jennifer, I love helping introverts.
Yeah,
So, like I already knew what we were going to be talking about. So that's one way that this was easier for me to show up. But even like on your own content on your own social feed, whether that's LinkedIn, whether that's Instagram, Facebook groups, what have you. Knowing your messaging, knowing the different angles and perspectives that you can usually speak from, it takes that question mark out of the situation. So it's just one less thing you have to worry about, right? And then
yeah,
when it actually posting something, for most introverts, I think a feed post is going to be the easiest thing that you can do. It's something that you have a graphic or a photo prepared for. If you really are not comfortable showing your face on social media, I highly, highly recommend either hiring a graphic designer to create some branded templates where you can use, like good snappy quotes, like Jennifer was just saying, good talking points, things like that, quotes either from your own content in the past, like blog posts, or quotes from other people where you can kind of give your own unique perspective and take on that quote. But having those branded graphics will allow you to do that. If you don't mind showing your face, gear yourself up and do one big photo shoot. You can do it. It'll last you anywhere from 3 months to 6 months to 2 years. I mean, I have my last professional photo shoot done right before the pandemic began. It was really good timing,
yeah,
actually. So it was, March of 2020. And I did since then chop all my hair off. So they're maybe not the most up-to-date photos, but those photos carried me a full year. You know what I mean? And then I always had something to go with my written content. If written content as an introvert is the easiest way for you to show up, figure out a way to make it work for you. And then you have all of that ready to go. So for a feed post on LinkedIn, a short article, a short thing that you can do, or a longer article where you're like really diving into one of what I would call your personal platform topics, one of those things that you could show up and talk about for a half hour without too much research, right?
yeah,
Um, those kinds of things tend to be easier for energy. And then in terms of like, one-to-ones, most introverts I know aren't big fans of small talk. So just let people know ahead of time, hey, I loved doing a deep dive into X topic. If they know ahead of time, you don't have to go through that kind of awkward transition of small talk. You can jump right in. It's when people aren't set up and aren't prepared that I feel like the energy suck really tends to happen. And for me, knowing that about myself has allowed me to kind of set my business up in a way where it's not as difficult for me to show up. And now when I do, a one-on-one, whether it's a coffee chat, get to know you with someone, or whether it's like a discovery type sales call, I make sure I know a little bit about that person so I can kind of lob the first question,
Yeah.
and then from that question transition into something that feels more natural and normal for me, which is, hey, let's talk about the thing.
Yeah. Oh, that's great advice. And again, it's about, isn't it, just doing your research. Um,
Mhm.
One thing I love doing on LinkedIn as an introvert is before any like one-to-one or group event or conference is find people on LinkedIn first, because I know my profile's good and it speaks for me, and they connect with me first. And then when they get on a Zoom with me or meet me at an event, they already feel like they know me. So it kind of cuts out that awkward, icky factor. And if I can, I mean, the first message will always be written because you can only personalize with a written message. But I will try and do an audio if it's going to be something coming up, so that they can hear my voice and they realize I'm a human being. And they should get that I'm Irish. Some people don't, but it just helps with the know, like, and trust factor. So it's something I've always done throughout corporate and now as a business owner. Just like you said, it's that group situation, that kind of cocktail or networking. I've always had to throw myself like physically into these situations and even into virtual ones. But I do find connecting in advance and having done that little bit of research just makes it so much easier, because otherwise it's awkward. Small talk, like you say, I hate it as well. And I've learned the hard way over the last 4 or 5 years in business that you have to be super organized for your discovery calls as well. Otherwise, they just kind of go on and on and on, and there's no logic, and that's when it gets awkward and stressful. So I actually pre-qualify everyone now before I even get on a Zoom with them if they're a
Mhm.
potential client, just so I know we're on the same page and we're the right fit. And if we're not, it's fine. If they're not the right fit at that point in time, I'll send them on their way with some free resources. But at least I can go back to their questionnaire in the call, like Brittany says, I've got something to start with and say, oh, I looked at your call and your questions, and you said this, 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 and then there is a plan. Because I think when there's no plan, you could just, I remember when I first launched in business, I was ridiculous. Like my discovery calls would go on for an hour and there was no need. And I just kept thinking, oh, I'm going to give such value. They're going to want to work with me. They're going to think this is amazing. But of course, take, take, take. She's giving it all for free. I didn't really have any structure. And yeah, I've learned the hard way. Planning, research, value your time. And then it's easier to get to the point, really. And it's not awkward. I think it's only awkward, like you said, when there's no plan at all. I got a comment from Anne here as well. She says small talk. I'll just stick it on the screen. Small talk is definitely not my favorite. I prefer deep dives, and I think I definitely as an introvert, I like to go deep. I don't really like kind of superficial crap. I just want to get to know
Yep.
people on a deeper level, and I've never really worked a room. I'm happy to have chats with 3, 4. If I chat to 5 people at a networking event, that is amazing for me. At least I'm going to remember them, and I'd rather go deep than work the room and chat to like 40 people and not remember anyone, what their names were, what they did. That is just hell for me. So I'm going to go into the next question, and it is, what is the best thing an introvert can do in their content strategy? And I know we've touched on bits already. Is there anything?
Yeah, I tend to answer all the questions right at the beginning, huh? um, I think the best thing an introvert, well, this is going to apply for either introverts or extroverts, but I think in terms of protecting energy, it helps introverts a lot, is having a well laid out content strategy at the beginning. So what I do in my group program and what I do with my one-to-one clients is we lay out all the different topics that someone could perceivably, learn from them on. And I lay them out in 3 content buckets, which is basically ways that you show up, things that you talk about. Those things help you stay on brand. So
Yeah.
having all of that laid out ahead of time, having that plan helps. But when it comes to the actual topics within each of those content buckets, I really like to help my clients pose their topics in a way that help their best client think differently about whatever problem they have. So, one of the reasons I like doing that and why I think it's so beneficial for introverts in particular to do it this way is because when you do this, when you get people thinking differently about their problem, you naturally posit yourself as part of the solution because you are the one that helped them start thinking differently about the problem. And then when they come to you for a discovery call or into your world in a different way, whether it's, a, kind of an entry level info product or a, discovery call for like a one-on-one session, they are already thinking about you as part of the solution. They are already using your words, which are really their words, but they're already using your words to describe the problem. So you have less of that awkward explaining to do. You have less of that transitioning to do. And when someone comes to you and they're like, hey, I think I really need to do this right now, you can immediately do your favorite thing, my favorite thing, which is a deep dive into their problem. Okay, so let's talk about how you're going to do this. Let's talk about how you're going to do this. I also have this other idea. And they probably at that point are going to be like, oh, yeah, I read about that here, or I heard about that here because of the way you've laid your content strategy out. And I used to be one of those people that would just, someone would say something in a Facebook group and I'm like, oh, I could totally write a topic about that. And then I could do this. Oh, I could totally talk about this thing too. And it wasn't organized. It wasn't moving people along a thought progression journey. And I ended up, on every sales call, right? I'd be like, well, we could do this, or there's this, or there's this other thing. Whereas when you lay your content strategy out in an organized fashion and you really put that thinking about things at the forefront, it kind of allows your content to do that initial small talk,
Yeah.
heavy lifting for you so that you don't have to. And I think it makes it so much easier for you to show up when you know that the showing up you do today, whether that's on LinkedIn Live, whether that's a Facebook post in a group, whether it's a comment on somebody else's Instagram profile, when you know that what you're doing right there isn't going to lead to an awkward small talk conversation, it's easier for you to show up because you're like, no, no, no. This is only going to bring in the kind of person who wants to talk
Yeah.
about this problem, who wants that deep dive.
No, that's great. And I think dealing with objections is a great thing to do in your content because there are like common objections I will always get to do with time or money or whatever.
Mhm.
I think when you touch on them in the content, you start to get people thinking, oh, I thought it was going to take that long, but if it's only going to take that long, maybe I will consider it. Or I think a lot of people, they make decisions based on where they are. They don't think of where they're going to be. So they're kind of like, oh, that's a bit expensive, but they're not thinking, well, actually, if I get my content working for me, I'm going to attract more clients and I'm going to be in a much better place and I'm going to earn way more than this costs. So I do find like dealing with objections and like, I think the more deep you can go into your client research and knowing exactly who your target avatar is and speaking to them, you do touch on all the kind of the small little bits before you get on. Because I think when I first launched my business, it was very much discovery calls and me having to convince people of the power of LinkedIn. And now I'm like, you should know LinkedIn's good. I'm not having these conversations. It's obvious. And the same, like any social media, it's not going away. It's here to stay. So it's kind of like you want to attract the right people who are committed, who are going to be like mine, shared values. So I even like in posts I shared one post one day and it was about my boundaries and things that kind of pissed me off. And I got lots of traction, but it kind of was showcasing subtly my values and what I put up with and
Mhm.
what I don't put up with. And then you attract like minds. So I think, yeah, the more you can just be you and be clear about what you stand for and what you're looking to attract, the easier it is to attract the right type of people with your content. But I think when you're not clear and you don't have that plan, and I know we're repeating, but I think sometimes it is good to repeat because so many people don't have a plan on social media and they don't know what what they stand for, and that's why they block themselves. Because I think what I learned really when I was in corporate, I didn't really know what my values were. It was like you had the values of the company, and I hardly remembered what they were. I knew them, I think, for the interview, and it was kind of, you'd see them now and again, and you're like, oh, yeah, yeah. But they never really encouraged me to develop my values because you're really just a cog in the wheel. And then as a
Yeah.
business owner, when I first launched, I had the nice branding and everyone's like, well, lovely logo, lovely colors, but I had no substance behind it for at least the first year. And it made me feel blocked and a bit of a fraud because I didn't do any deep dive as to who I was, what I stood for, what my super connector stood for, what was my mission. There was no mission, there was no vision. And I think
Mhm.
when you do get that clarity, then you get more confident, and then it's way easier to do your content because there is a purpose and there is a point to it all.
Yeah. Well, and I love what you just said. When you know who you are, when you have that clarity, everything else becomes easier. And I just did a podcast episode a couple weeks ago. It might have just been last week, actually. Um, the title of the podcast episode was "Action Cures Fear," and I talked a lot about imposter syndrome. And you were just talking about feeling like a fraud and feeling blocked. And the very short version of the entire podcast message was, when you talk about what you do, you can't help but become more confident about the kind of expertise you have and the services that you offer, because you can't talk about showing up for introverts or showing up in general or creating a content plan or any of the things that we've touched on today. You can't talk about them often without realizing, oh no, what I'm talking about really does make sense. Because as you kind of talk through problems, especially in an interview format like this, you're like, oh, so Jennifer approaches it like this, but I see how that kind of interweaves with how I do it. And you're like, no, this all makes sense. It just does. So one of the best ways to kind of get past that block or that feeling of being a fraud is to show up more, not just doing it, but talking about it. And that's another really good why for why someone should show up consistently,
Yeah.
because when you do that, you do become more confident in what you're doing, and you can carry that into your client work, and they're going to notice it as well, which is only going to result in better testimonials, better referrals, and aid future showing up again in a very lovely full circle there.
Yeah, definitely. And, it is only by taking action that you get more confident.
Mhm.
When I first
Mhm.
applied for LinkedIn Live, part of me was like, oh, I better apply. I'm a LinkedIn trainer. But I'm like a real oddball of LinkedIn trainers because most of them are extroverts and they love video. And I was like, oh, I better apply. And then I got it and I was like, oh my God, I have to go live. And they send you a message saying, you have to go live within 30 days or you're going to lose this. And I was like, oh my God. And it took me about 28 days of that 30 days to go live. And the way I did it was very similar to this week. I lined up a few guests and I thought, right,
Mhm.
I'm going to do one interview for the next 4 weeks. And I had my guests and I had the accountability and there was a plan and I couldn't get out of it. So I was like, right, I'm doing it. And by the time I did the 4 interviews, I did my first one on my own. And I was used to the tech then, and it wasn't that big a deal. Whereas at the
Mhm.
start, it was a big deal. But I just think it's like riding a bike, only by practicing and putting yourself out there, it gets easier. And you mentioned even the photo shoot, like my first photo shoot, it went well, but I hated it as an introvert. And I came home and I had a banging migraine and I went straight to bed. And I literally was in bed for about 5 hours. And don't ask me why, but I decided to book this shoot on my birthday of all things. So I decided to put myself through this. Came home, had a migraine. But like Brittany said, it's so worth it to get over yourself because I used those photos for about 3-4 years. And then I had another shoot last year. And I plan on using them again for 3-4 years, unless I drastically change. But yeah, sometimes you have to get over yourself. But the power of that headshot and the power of the branded templates, like you mentioned, they give you confidence because they make you feel like you stand for something and you have a brand. So I am conscious that we've gone over, and I knew we would because I love chatting about it being an introvert and I love chatting about all things content. And I just want to, before I wrap up, I want to give the floor to Brittany. And I just wanted to say she has got an amazing podcast. And that's kind of how we met. We initially met through the Advanced Network, and then I went on her podcast. And her podcast is called No Like Trust, which is an absolutely amazing name anyway. So do check out her podcast, and I will be on it at some stage in the future. But I was going
Yeah.
to say, Brittany, how can people contact you in general? Like, I know you've mentioned Instagram, so obviously you like it there. What's the best for you?
Yeah, I mean, I do have a presence on all the social platforms. So if you are very tied to one, I'm happy to talk with you on there. But other than that, my website's probably the best way to contact me. It's brittanyGardner.com, just like you see it spelled in my little subtitle on the window here. And my podcast is called The Know, Like, and Trust Show. I've been doing it since 2016. I've got more or less weekly episodes throughout that time period. And, you know, it's been such a great way for me to connect with people. And I want to close by saying that is I started the podcast. My husband was doing a podcast editing business at the time, and he was like, "You should have a podcast for your business." And I was like, that seems like a lot of showing up that I don't want to do. So, you know, it was a good exercise for me. It got me comfortable on audio. I started it out by hating my voice, you know, my recorded voice, because you always sound different than you think you do, right? And it got me past all of that comfortability. And truly, this is an action cures fear kind of situation. But it also, like Jennifer just said, you know, having those guests gave her accountability to embrace LinkedIn Live, and now she feels like she's totally good with it because she's gotten past the tech, she's gotten past the like muscle of you know, doing that. And I feel the same way about podcasting. It's gotten me first of all, so many cool connections I never would have been able to make not having a podcast, right? So if you're having trouble showing up and you know this is something that you should do for your business, and I mean should in the best way, not the judgmental way. But you know, if you know that you need some accountability, find something, whether it's doing a live series like this. A podcast is probably a little more long-term work and long-term plan than this would be. But
Yeah.
you know, maybe it's doing like a, you know, LinkedIn live series or an Instagram live series with somebody else. Maybe it's just having an accountability partner. You're saying, hey, we are each going to post in this Facebook group twice this week. Let's hold each other accountable. So whatever it needs to be for you, I encourage you to find that, because you would never believe, having watched the two of us here, that we both used to hate this, right? So
Yeah, exactly.
we're there.
I
Yeah.
think, yeah, and like I don't have my own podcast, but as an introvert, I love podcasts because
Mhm.
most of them you're not on the video. The odd one they kind of throw a spanner in the works and go, "We're going straight to YouTube," and you're like, "What?
And you're like,
I'm in my
I was
pajamas."
not prepared.
Exactly. I'm hearing my tracksuit bottoms, and it's like, oh, you're just hearing my voice. But I love them. They are great if you're an introvert. They just really are, and you get your voice in the room, and you don't have to worry about looking at yourself on the screen. So yeah, and I love the idea of the accountability buddy, because even when I did face-to-face networking when I was back in corporate, I had accountability buddies that I went networking with. So we kind of would go to the same event, be there at the start, we might spread off, and then we'd come back, and it gave me comfort knowing that they were in the room. There was like your wing woman or your wing man. So I do love the idea of that as well when it comes to content and having that accountability and support. So I am conscious, like I said, I could talk all day, and I know it's Brittany's morning. She has to get on with her day. So I just want to say thank you so much for joining me. You've been an amazing guest, so much good information. And do follow Brittany as well on LinkedIn, or reach out and connect with her. Like I said, personalized, tell her you've watched this so she knows, because us introverts like to have a little bit of a head. Well, I do. I like to know when somebody's trying to connect with me. It's like, who is this person? And it makes it so much easier to connect faster. You know, at least you're like, oh, okay, that's right, that's fine. I have no problem with connecting with you. So yeah. Oh yeah, Callie's just said at the very end, what's Brittany's podcast? So it's the Know, Like, and Trust show, isn't it?
Yep. The No Like and Trust Show, and you can find it on, you know, Apple Podcasts. You can find it on Spotify, on all the major players. I think I'm even on. Oh, I forgot. I'm on Amazon Music now. Yeah, it's out there.
It's
It's
great.
also my website. So
Yeah, check it out because it's great, and it's about a half an hour podcast as well, isn't it? It's not super long, so you can dip
yeah,
in.
my guest shows are usually about a half hour. My solo shows are usually 20 minutes or less. So
It's
yep.
good timing there for the solo show. I will note that for myself.
Yep.
Well, listen, thank you so much. And thank you everyone who has joined. I'm just going to just remind you that I'm doing these interviews all of this week, same time, 3 o'clock UK time. And all of the ladies are from this amazing network. I don't even know if you can see my cup, a big bit of lipstick there. It's the Advanced Women's Network. And if anybody wants to know about this network, reach out. So I joined it because I wanted to connect with women like Brittany. More, it's kind of mixed. It's mainly women in the States. You've got some in Canada, some in Australia, one lady in Greece and about 10 in the UK. So if you want to mix it up and you want to connect with women around the world, get in touch and I will give you some information. And you will be meeting 4 lovely ladies during the week. Tomorrow it's Donna. We're talking about overcoming adversity. Wednesday, it's another lady called Jennifer, and we're talking about PR and thought leadership. Thursday, it's a lady called Melanie, and we're talking about content again. You can't have enough content. And Friday, I'm talking to Sabrina about how to be more confident as a business owner. And we do need confidence. You need it. You need that mindset. So I hope to see some of you during the week as well, if not at all. And yeah, that's it. Thank you so much. Have a great evening, and you have a great day, Brittany. And see you all. Take care. Bye.